Live.
Hello, everybody. Aradhna Tiwari here from Be the Change by Aradhna. I'm the founder of the page, Be the Change page, and I'm here for the talk show every Sunday. So just wanted to brief you about a little bit about Be the Change and this talk show, and then I'll take you to the talk show. So the Be the Change page is basically a page created to come and show up this as you, the change that you are here on the planet for. So I invite you every morning with a question and. I post a question every morning, which is channeled to me, and then we go through that question every morning into our worlds and we introspect our worlds, and it creates a lot of difference, and which is like walking, talking. You can just be, you don't have to meditate, but you can at least start looking into your worlds, and for which I do come at 11:11 Insta Live every morning to talk about it on the page Be the Change by Aradhna. It's called on the Insta handle. And yes, I come every Sunday for with a new guest, a new celebrity on the talk show. For me, consciousness includes everything, and it includes every aspect of our life. And there are very few courageous people who actually did not want to fix up in a box and live the lives of those boxes as defined, and this should happen, not happen, on who we be and what we not be. And they just followed their heart, their knowing, and have actually made the difference. And they have been such a gift to all of us. So I call them celebrities. They are my celebrities, and I really learn a lot from them. They come and they melt my world, and I come here and share these talks with you so that it might be inspiration. If it not, it's okay. But I definitely know they melt a lot of people's world, and we are looking for those information. As how I was talking to my guest before I came here, it's that level from 0 to 1 when we have to be setting that whole thing, the pressure that we go through, how would we do, the fears that come up, how to outgrow them. These people have done it, so I'm sure we all can do it. So I'm not taking much of your time. I'll introduce my today's guest. Today's guest is Chintan Bakshi, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Startup Oasis and Partner Incubation at CIE, and CEO brings with him a unique experience of starting and scaling new ventures and tech startup companies. He has 6+ years of new project management and implementation experience and reputed companies, and another 19 years of startup and startup incubation experience. An engineering graduate from IIT New Delhi and an MBA from IIM Bangalore. Chintan is a co-founder of Procruise.com and United Villages Networks. So come on, join me as I chat with Chintan about his vast range of experiences. Welcome, Chintan.
Good
Thanks.
evening. Hi. Hi, Radna.
Hi, and thank you for saying yes, and thank you for being here. How did we get so lucky? Thank you.
No, no, my pleasure.
Awesome. So looking forward here as I was just talking to them and to you before this talk, so that I know you all of you have so much gifts and the courage to actually show up in the world as who you be. So I just want to make you. I'll give you the baton to you to start your life journey wherever you started, but just from the start, that what did you know special from your childhood? So can you have a little bit the behind the camera scene of Chintan Bakshi?
Nothing special. I mean, I had a pretty conventional kind of a childhood. I mean, I'll just give a quick background about myself. So I actually belong to Kashmir. So I belong to the Kashmiri Pandit community. Uh, and while I have stayed most of my life in Delhi because my father got transferred, I think in 1975 or so. Uh, I mean, a fairly conventional childhood. I went to DPS RK Puram, which is a fairly conventional sort of a school. I'm smirking because in IIT, so I went to IIT Delhi after that, and there we realized that we were called, or rather, the school was called a factory because it used to churn out a lot of people who would finally end up in the IITs, and we were given special treatment. When this person is from DPS RK Puram specially, so there was a special sort of a queue for us for a special treatment during the at that point of time there was to be ragging and all that. I think now it's not there anymore. So I then went to IIT Delhi as I mentioned, was there for 4 years, was wondering for the 4 years what I'm doing there, but anyway we
My
got.
question here, just wanted to tag in, is like, like you did your schooling from GPS, you did it from IIT. What brought you to IIT? Was it that because your parents were saying that you have to be anti, or did you know, or were you excited to be there? What?
There were really two options. Either you go into engineering or you go into medicine. There was no third option when we were doing schooling.
Was it exciting enough for you?
No. So, yeah, so that's what has changed now. Hopefully, I think now it's slightly more conscious because your program is really with the background of consciousness and taking conscious decisions. At that point of time in class 12th, I don't know if anyone who took a conscious decision about his career. As I said, there were really these two choices. And if you're not academically well, then maybe there was a third choice, which was economics and commerce and whatever. But if you're academically kind of in the top X%, then it was either medicine or engineering. I mean, somehow engineering appealed to some of us more, so we ended up there. So it was fairly simple. It was not much of a choice.
Awesome. And you give the credit to the school to churn you up to get to IIT, not just.
So the school till class 10th was like a normal school. And then after class 10th, it became like a coaching school. We were actually put into sections based on our abilities. And, I ended up in what was known as an ability section, where all the toppers were put together. And, we were supposed to sort of get into the IITs and all that. And the best teachers were kind of allocated to us. It might sound like a caste system of sorts, but that's what it was. And, it worked. I mean, it was able to churn out, I think in my batch, there were some 70, 75 odd students. I mean, the numbers may seem small now, but also remember that I'm talking about 1988, the number of entries or engineering seats in IITs was less than 1,000. So 75 from one school, right, is like about 7%. Right? So that is quite an achievement.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So what was that when you went to an IIT? Was it that something coming from your parents? What was your parents' background, and how did it? Was it like fun for you to be there? Was it a proud moment for you? And was it like a joy in your world, like going on?
I mean, the time we spent in the hostel was fun. The time we spent in the institute, in the classes, was not fun. For the simple reason that it wasn't a conscious decision from our side. So when I'm saying it's true for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Maybe there are, I think, 5, 10, 15. I mean, I don't know what the numbers would be, but it will be a minuscule minority who were probably meant to be engineers, IIT engineers, etc. So I'm not saying all of us were misfits. Mm-hmm. Large percentage of us were essentially misfits. We were there because of the reasons which I mentioned that, our parents told us.
If you now look back to it, Chintan, that maybe the unconscious choices also that you made, I guess somewhere deep down you were conscious about and trusted your knowing of trusting your parents. And it's like what has that gifted that, keep going on, and then you did IIM Bangalore. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure that, I'm an IITian from Delhi and I'm an IIM from Bangalore. Now what do I have to create in the world and what kind of a job? So can you talk a little bit more about, because right now with the COVID situation also, and also otherwise in life, when people get out of these colleges, this is a big, huge gap, which nobody ever talks about, as we were talking also. How to go about first move? Is it the job? Is it the business? Is it how you step into that world? So can you please talk about that?
No. So I think it's especially if one from a reputed college like an IIT or an IIM, obviously the pressure is there. The pressure of performance is there, right? I mean, people are looking at you, whether it's your parents or peers or whatever. But having said that, and that's the quick discussion we were having before the show, that ultimately we have to come to a point where we are able to take conscious decisions, right? Maybe in school it may be a bit too early, but I firmly believe that it needs to start in school now. I mean, we were probably living in a different era, where maybe in school, college, opportunities were not there, exposure was not there, but now it needs to happen fairly early. But at some point of time, you need to come to a space where you come to terms with yourself and start taking conscious decisions. A lot of times it happens out of serendipity, it happens through an accident, etc. But it should happen. I mean, I'm not saying that it happens with everyone, but once it happens, you realize that the pressure of performance is really self-created. right? I mean, it's really not there. It's something which is in your own mind. You have created it, and it actually leads to suboptimal performance, right? I mean, if a cricketer goes to play and he's saying that the whole India is looking at me, obviously he's not going to perform well. But if he just goes and and kind of just plays, right? He is in the zone, as sportsmen call it.
Yeah.
You kind of play a natural game. I mean, you sort of do whatever is to be done. So I think it's, uh, understanding that a lot of the pressure, expectations, what, log kya kahenge, etc., is largely self-created, is really the starting point of a conscious journey. And the sooner it happens, the better.
Wow. It's self-created, guys. I so trust you, and I mean, I totally agree with you on that. It's self-created projections and expectations that we create in our world. So, what would you like to say there, and how to go about it? Like when you day one, if you go from the conscious space now, because that's the need of this hour, right? So it's just being, as you and me were discussing, that now we can't just make those unconscious choices and just keep going and expect the results. So, would you like to talk more on the conscious thoughts and how to go about it?
See, I'm also going to now touch upon a topic which is fairly sensitive, but I think everybody realizes it. So the government has come up with the new education policy, right? What's known as the NEP. And if you look at it, it's very clear that the government realizes that the current education system is completely broken, right? I mean, it's really the push is towards trying to change that entire thing. Easier said than done, right? How do you change in a couple of years a system which is actually pre-independence, right? Education system in shape and form, what we have inherited right now, fundamentally, examination, class, subjects, 40 people in a classroom, etc., etc. What's called the factory schooling system, right? Some people actually call it, and that's what we were called when we actually went into IIT. कि ये तो factory से हैं, आ जाओ. It's a it's a system which is broken, and to a large extent it's the culprit. The culprit is the current schooling system, because it's designed to make you an unconscious individual, right? Because you have to kind of go through a set system of classes, subjects, and you need to score a certain number of marks, etc., etc., and then you then go into the entrance exams and etc., right? So in this kind of a system, and which is, in the case of India, it's highly competitive. It's a resource starved nation in terms of jobs, opportunities, etc. So there is the additional burden of significant contribution. I mean, it's there in the other countries also, but here it's probably more pronounced. So therefore, that's why I was saying that the change really needs to happen at the education system level. I just mentioned that the government can't do it, or government can do only limited things. They can come up with policies, etc. And that's where I think, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, whether you call them social entrepreneurs, whether you call them technology entrepreneurs, these are some of the catalysts we can bring about that change. There are a lot of examples that one sees, right? And a lot of these are young people in their 20s who have faced, right? They have kind of gone through this system and they've realized that it doesn't lead anywhere, and they're trying to make changes to it. They're trying to create, almost like, I would say, parallel alternative kind of schools, maybe in the cloud, or some sessions where you can just go there and actually learn, interact with other people, share ideas, and kind of almost move out of the factory system and do something. So I think, to answer your question, the journey of making conscious choices really needs to start from the schooling system, because by the time you're out of a school, you're 18, the damage is done. And that's what I realized. So I kind of started looking at myself when I was almost 30, 2000, yeah. That's where I kind of moved out of the rat race. As I was talking about, we did a startup back in 2000. It did not go anywhere, and then we sort of figured out what to do, what not to do. And that's the time I kind of started looking back. What have I done? What are the choices I have made? And I realized that a lot of the tension which actually got released in that 2 or 3 years when I was sort of hanging in midair, I wasn't doing anything, I was figuring out, was actually self-created and built during the schooling period, right? So it kind of got me into understanding the damage that factory schooling does, the pressure of performing just for the sake of performing, right? I mean, what's the big deal if you get 90%? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
At an existential level, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you are wise. It doesn't mean that you can build something with your hands or you have a better understanding. It just means that you're good at taking an exam, right? So, I think the change really needs to come there.
So, what would you say to the parents? Because, it's also not only the school, because of course, school created and the parents support it. You know how parents have it's 95 marks or 99 marks or 96 marks and half a mark, 1 mark. And there's a rat race which is also among the parents because they also got into that. And now also when everybody's at home, kids are sitting and I see parents getting so paranoid. Oh, there's no school, there is no discipline, nothing. And I enjoy kids being home. I'm like, their creativity is coming out. They're actually choosing to. So, what would you like to say to those parents? And how would you now like to look at the system? I mean, you passed through it, you've been through that rat race, you've been through that factory system. And you're here today in the conscious world where people are making conscious choices and looking back. What would you like to say to those people and a family? And what are your inputs to that? I mean, I'm sure everybody chooses for themselves, but what would be your feedback to it?
Uh, See, I think that's a very, very relevant point, that unless parents don't realize that this is meaningless and it's actually harmful. See, actually, I would not have many issues if it was meaningless, right? If you're doing something meaningless for 18 years, it's fine, but it's actually harmful.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you further away from yourself, takes you further away from yourself, and it makes the journey of finding your self, your center, all the more difficult because you're a period of coercive, structured, pressurized system where your self actualization was prevented because of this system of marks, exams, and pressure, and getting all that.
Making me laugh somehow.
Yeah,
Chintan.
so that's what I looked at. When I was doing my own self introspection, my first thing was that it was meaningless. But when I went deeper, I realized that it wasn't just meaningless; it was actually harmful.
Yeah.
Therefore, I would not have too much of an issue. If it was meaningless. We do a lot of meaningless things all the time, but it's actually harmful. Now, how do parents realize it? I mean, I don't have a magic formula, but I'll just share one data. So there's I stay in Jaipur, which is not a big city, and I mean it's a uh, I mean, it's not a place where a lot of IIT, IIM kind of people are. It's a more traditional city, but there's a WhatsApp group of homeschoolers. I mean, these are parents who want to homeschool. I mean, some of their kids may be in conventional schools, but it's a 50, 60 member WhatsApp group, which I just got kind of included in it. So that means there are at least whatever the number is, 60 parents who are actively looking at some options, right? There may not be enough options. There are a couple of alternative schools in Jaipur. Maybe there are more. I mean, these are people who know each other. So let's assume there are 100 parents in Jaipur who are actively exploring some options like these. We can do the math and come up with some figure. There are some communities of homeschoolers which talk about, I was just seeing on the internet yesterday, which are about 1,500 strong. So there is a traction getting built. Now, that's where I'm saying that if there are entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, startups, etc., who can come up with meaningful alternatives, right, where these parents can send their children, or they find a fulfilling holistic kind of an education, then the traction will build. I mean, so it's maybe 0.1%. The other 99.9% will follow through. When we talk about diffusion of innovations, see, and whenever a new thing comes into, there are some very early adapters. That's the 0.1%. You just need to address them. Once they do something, these are called innovators. Then are the early adapters. So once the innovators do something, and the early adapters see, yaar, inka to acha ho raha hai, bacche bade wo ho rahe hain, ye ho rahe hain, then they jump in. So the early adapters maybe 3, 4, 5%. Innovators are less than 1%.
Yeah.
If you pick 100 people, there'll only be one innovator. And then the laggards come in, and the late adapters, and then the mass So that's the way anything new diffuses, and there are enough studies around this. So therefore, we just need to focus on that 0.1%. So right now, what I'm trying to say is that even that 0.1% of parents are not fully serviced. They don't have enough options. They are struggling. The example that I gave of the WhatsApp group in Jaipur, they don't have enough options. So if we can get these folks serviced well, if there are enough opportunities where their children can enjoy, maybe you don't need to drop out of school. A lot of things can be done in parallel. Some of them may drop out, etc. Drop out in the sense may go to an alternative kind of a school, which doesn't seem too risky, right? I mean, you can still sort of go into a conventional career. The other segments will, I think, come in.
So here, when you say that, and I was gonna go there itself, how that 0.1% innovative is somebody who knows something different, who knows, follows their heart, and
Yes.
all are sitting for on the edge that let me see the other one. Maybe we are the first one, and as you rightly said, that first one don't have much data. They'll have to struggle through it, and they will work through it. But
Yes.
when you have that passion of doing it, I think then it doesn't look like a struggle. Like it's fun. So I know that is a time. I think I always had this question: how do you go from zero to one stage? Which, as we were saying, has not been very well documented, and that is the whole idea of this talk show. Like like if that 0.1% Chintan, and from zero to one, is that the passion what drives you through that struggle period? Because you are the going to be the pioneers of tomorrow if you succeed. And I guess I don't know. I mean that's my point of view. There is nothing called failure. It just learns, like you did one startup and you did another startup. So could you talk more around this for these people who are going through this period of zero to one and this 0.1 schoolers? Because right now, of course, it's a chaos of with all the parents how to teach the kids at home and how to go about schooling. So could we little talk about that too?
Yeah. So maybe I'll quickly touch on the homeschooling part. I mean, maybe it's a good opportunity right now, right? Everybody is at home. So it's a great opportunity where some homeschooling, alternative schooling models can be tried out. Having said that, now let's look at the general uh, journey of zero to one for any new initiative, whether it's in schooling or whatever it is. Yeah, so I completely agree that that's the journey which is for anyone on the entrepreneurial journey trying to do something new, and that's the journey which is the least documented, right? Because at from the zero to one stage, or in the zero to one stage, funding doesn't happen, right? The angel investors, VCs, the glamour part of the startup world doesn't happen in the zero to one stage. It probably happens in 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say if it's a 10-point scale, in the zero to one scale, you're alone. You are maybe searching for a co-founder. You are struggling, sort of trying to figure out what to do, what not to do. You are kind of significantly struggling trying to get your first customers. Forget about first customers, trying to figure out who your customer is. So those are that's the journey where the mortality is the highest, right? So if 10 people decide to do something, maybe 8 or 9 fizzle out at that stage. That's also the stage which is the least documented, right? Because most newspapers, press, blogs, etc., want to cover a startup when some angel investor or VC sort of comes in, which is beyond the zero to one stage. So what needs to be done? What are some of the learnings? I mean, I'll just talk about some of the things which come to mind. See, the thing about doing something new is that because it's new, there won't be any milestones, there won't be any benchmarks, there won't be any guideposts, or there'll be limited sort of maps because it is new. So you won't have maps. If the maps are there, then obviously it's something which is well trodden, and because it is well trodden, the large companies will get into it, or people with resources will get into it. So people like us who may not have a lot of financial resources to do something new, but have the passion or have faced a problem and want to now create a solution, we will typically be able to do something in areas which are not the trodden path, so as to say. So there are no maps. So what really works in such circumstances is what is called as the build, measure, learn architecture, right? It's also called it's called the lean startup. People in the software industry may call it agile. People in the design industry may call it design thinking. But fundamentally, what it means is that whatever you think is the solution, test it out very early on through the means of prototypes, right? And that's where creativity comes in, right? So when you are doing prototype development, so let's say if someone wants to start an alternative school, right? He thinks that maybe there's an opportunity now. So a prototype of an alternative school could be a 2-week online course on a topic of interest to some of these parents, which is not being taught in a regular school. So there you will be able to gauge the engagement, how the parents feel after the end of the course, how whether the students enjoyed it, were they able to pay? Maybe if you're also testing pricing. So a prototype can be something as simple as that. Right? Maybe you say, okay, I'm going to start a 2-week course on visual arts. Right? I'm just going to give you some demonstrations. I'm going to teach you something, and I'm going to get some 2 or 3 experts, and they'll talk about what are the career opportunities, and then there'll be a project, and then you present something at the end of the 2 weeks, right? So it needs to be a replica of almost like a course that you would do over 1 semester in a school in a shortened form, which is why it's called a prototype. But it needs to be complete, right? It needs to deliver value at the end of the program. It can't be 2 weeks of a 6-month course, because then you won't evaluate it. So the process of being able to design and implement these prototypes is really what a startup, is the 0 to 1 journey is about, right? So we as part of CICO Startup Oasis, where we have been helping startup entrepreneurs over the last 8 years personally, and over the last 12 years as an organization. This is fundamentally what we do. We essentially help early stage entrepreneurs to figure out, given the stage that they are at, given the resources they have, what's the best way to prototype, right? And what we call as fail fast. As you rightly said, failure is not a bad word, because failure actually gives you data. It gives you information as to what is not working. Because when you know what is not working, you are closer to what is working. I'm going to link it to consciousness. So in Upanishads, there is this term called neti. I mean, the way to find truth is via negativa. You can't, it's not a positive process, because truth is something which is very evasive, right? You are really talking about finding infinity. So the only way to finding infinity is by figuring out what is not infinite. So through negation. So it's the same thing, because when you are doing a startup, it's a lot of haziness and a lot of flux. So you figure out what is not working, and at some point of time you'll start intuitively getting an understanding of who is your customer, what does he want, and how do you build.
Please put that, Chintan, and can we talk a little bit more around that topic of the way you brought up the consciousness stuff of like negative is not negative, and how is negative gifting you? So, people just like, oh, because I'm a failure, it's a negative, I just want to give up. And, a lot of people give, like how you said, out of 10 people, 8 might give up. So what is that support? What are the tools, and what is that you would like to say for those kind of people? Because you've been working with that kind of genre. So what would you like to say to them from the conscious level, from every level, as a support, as a being, like, who's actually been through that journey? So what is your input to that?
No, I think as you also mentioned, and what we were just discussing, failure is an intrinsic part of the startup journey, right? And there is no way to build a startup unless you don't fail early, right? That's why we say fail fast. So the prototyping process, yes, the prototyping process is really defined for that. So the example that I gave, that you do a 2-week online Zoom course for visual arts for these 50 parents on a WhatsApp group who are searching for solutions for their children. Because if it fails, what's the big deal? I mean, there's hardly any cost. Maybe there'll be a couple of friends who are taking these lectures, and you are one of the facilitators, and there'll be 4 or 5 parents who may not like your face after that, but that's okay. It's not a huge cost, as opposed to setting. Let's say if I go with the conventional way, I'll set up a school, I'll call it an alternative school, and then I'll create a curriculum, and I'll do this and that, and then I go to parents and advertise and do the conventional thing, and then I realize that only 10 parents turn up, and my fixed costs of running the school are so high that 10 parents are not able to generate enough revenue to cover those. So then that's not failing fast. That's a very painful failure. It happens because you kind of were using your conventional thinking of doing things. So I think failure, as long as it's built into the process in such a way that it doesn't hurt you too much, is an intrinsic process of doing anything new. Because doing anything new essentially means that you are jumping into an abyss of sorts, and you need to kind of figure out what to do, what not to do. And the way to figure out what to do is to figure out what not to do, and that you get to know only by failing, small failures, right, through prototyping. That's the journey. It's as simple as that.
Totally shifted my point of view around it for sure. I wonder if it's as shifting for other people. I've never had the better thing to failure, as you said, fail fast. And I think I'll carry this with me totally from this talk show. This is just like, it's going to be my new mantra, fail fast. So thank you for that. And yet, like, I wanted to know more about it. Like, what do you know about Be the Change? Like how we have this program is called Be the Change, and my tagline is never give up, never give in, never quit. So, I just would like your input to that, and inviting the this generation right now going through all this COVID, and also a lot of people going through the COVID. Could you talk a little more and, support and tell people who are going through the COVID, who've lost their jobs, who've lost the business, who've lost losing the money, how to go about that? And like, now at this hour, what do you think the change can be?
Yeah. See, I think it's a fairly painful process. A lot of people lost close friends, relatives, etc. I mean, I think I would say economic loss is secondary. The most important thing is life, health, etc. So we have all gone through that. We don't know what's in store in the future, but having said that, in a way, I mean, it all boils down to the same point which we started the discussion with. The current economic structure, society, whatever we have built out there, is largely an unconscious process, right? I mean, if 99% of students graduating out of school, college, etc. I mean, the percentage is much better now. I'm talking about when we graduated. It may be, it's better definitely. I mean, I think the newer generation is much more conscious and has more exposure to that extent. But still, it's a fairly large percentage, which because they go through that factory system. If they are fundamentally unconscious and they are doing things because the person before them was doing it, or it is a conventional thing to do, or friends, peers, parents say that this is what the right thing to do, obviously what you will come up with is not going to be a conscious societal and economic structure, right? I mean, before COVID started, the focus of most heads of nations, etc., apart from the other news making issues, was climate change, right? And a lot of people, senior people, have obviously been saying that that's a much bigger disaster than and a much bigger impending disaster than this. In fact, a lot of people are saying that maybe this has prompted us to kind of make some changes, course corrections, because the way in which we were going was a short recipe for disaster, where we are still going. So in a way, it's not that pre-COVID things were hunky-dory and we were living in a society of milk and honey and everything was going well. I mean, we had fundamentally destroyed all other forms of life just because, we had some convoluted notions of what ambition is and what success is and what happiness is. And, we were still not happy. The kind of alcohol, drugs, etc. that we consume. I mean, if we need chemicals to stay high, so that says it all. So therefore, I mean, my only perspective is that things were not great. I mean, they are pretty bad right now, but it's not from a wonderful stage to a bad stage. It was from a equally or significantly distorted situation, where I think we had kind of kept things under control through Band-Aid, etc. But it had the potential to blow up at any point of time. We were seeing it happening. I mean, the initial effects of climate change and destruction of wildlife. In fact, a lot of people are saying that a lot of these zoonotic viruses are primarily because of invasion of wildlife territories, right? Because and because of humans coming into contact with a lot of these animals. I mean, these are all viruses which jump from animals to humans. So in a way, the fundamental causes of this virus, perhaps, I mean, I was just reading a paper today, which is trying to describe that, is not too different than the fundamental causes of climate change. And climate change is a much bigger issue. So basically, to answer your question, we are already in a mess.
Correct.
This is maybe another kind of smaller. I mean, it's not small; it's huge. I'm not trying to belittle it, but it's not that things were great and now they are pretty.
What,
Things were already pretty bad.
what is the solution to this? What is your
It's the same thing what you are doing, as long as people do not become conscious. See, why will people do things which are sensible? They will only do things which are sensible if they are conscious, if they have a sense of themselves, if they have a sense of how they are related to the world around, if they don't care about the fact that what this person is thinking about me, what this person is thinking about me, if they get, in fact, one of the things which I want to talk to you about is, see, you know, if I in my mind have this notion stuck that I'm from IIT and I'm from IIM, etc. If I don't get that out, it's very unlikely that I'll be a conscious human being.
Yeah.
Get that, I would say, shit out of the head.
Thank you for saying that.
Right? Because it's again the same thing.
Yes.
It's simply a notion. It's just an idea. It doesn't have any existential reality. It's just an idea. I may have gone through 4 years in an institute, which is a great institute, nothing against it. I mean, your show is being broadcast live, so I'm not. I mean, in fact, I am still connected with IIT Delhi. We are trying to develop an oxygen concentrator. One of our startup is trying to develop it in IIT Delhi. I'm still connected to the institute. It's a great institute. I mean, it's great. It's given us a lot of entrepreneurs, innovators, etc. Fundamentally, I'm talking about individuals at this point of time. I mean, there are a lot of people from IITs, IIMs, etc., who have a notion that they are from an IIT, IIM, and it's actually detrimental for them. So to be able to get out of this mindset, right, and to come into terms with reality, come to a conscious center within you, figuring out how you are related to not just peers, businesses. I mean, because the economic system is just one part of it. There's a larger reality of life, right? I mean, there are trees which are actually giving you oxygen for free. There are animals who are all there, which are your predecessors. I mean, ultimately, you have evolved out of animals. I was just seeing a Deepak Chopra interview where he was saying that, the DNA commonality between a man and a chimpanzee is 98.7% or something like that, right? So, there's a responsibility we have towards them. I mean, all these things as a philosophy doesn't happen. It only happens once you become conscious.
Yeah.
And for you to become conscious, you need to be centered. For you to be centered, you need to get rid of all these accessories, baggage. I am from here, I am from there, I am whatever, this religion, that religion, etc., etc. I mean, these are convenient identities we need to have to get around, but fundamentally, it's one needs to come to that center. So I think wonderful job that you're doing. It's the need of the hour. It needs to be scaled up, a million times if possible.
Consciousness is the need of the hour, and I think I totally get that, and that's my whole thing of the Be the Change. And thank you to each one of you who come here and are willing to share your journey, because that actually brings up, end of the day, we are getting out of those identities of who we be, what we be, but yet people are only willing to listen to those people who have actually made it there. So I'm actually using you all to my advantage to bring that awareness.
Absolutely.
Doesn't really matter who you are, what you are, but it's the choice of being conscious. And I think we all can collectively change this on the planet right now with our joy and laughter. That's my currency to it. So, yet having said that, then, if it comes to you, Chintan, what would you be like to be remembered as? Who would you be like to, if you want to really gift to the something to this planet? What is that? What is your knowing? What is that gift in you that you think is you always wanted to give it to everyone?
I'm not too sure about it. I mean, I think my sort of ambition is basically to be able to live more consciously, right? Because I think I realize that that's the biggest gift. I mean, if I can become more conscious, uh, the energy that I'll be able to create and impact people around me will be far bigger than anything else, right? So because that's really what you can do. The only thing that you can really work on is yourself.
Yeah. So do you think any synchronicity with how you have worked all through these years with, being technically held with this reality of like how to study, how to be, form structures, and you have been following a form structure, as you said, for years, eons of years. And now coming from that space and then knowing the heart and then just knowing your knowing of being conscious. How how would you like to put that journey across to people? Like it's like what is your knowing from that journey, and is that everything in synchronicity, like how you saying that nature, animals, everything is bringing up, but yet what else do you know that we like you can contribute to us?
I mean, again, I'll sort of try to put it uh, simply because it is in a way the journey is that. So the journey is really internal. Our ability to live as conscious human beings, our ability to connect with nature, our ability to be sensitive to other forms of life. These are philosophies also, right? There are environmentalist movements, etc. But they have their own role, etc. But these are all outcomes in my experience. Once you get deeper within yourself, once you connect with your true self, these are realities that you tend to see. Therefore, I mean, if we were to kind of try and put, create action items out of it, and how to do it, uh, I mean, my sense is that it really needs to boil down to more people in a way following the passion, right? Following your own passion, because that's really the starting point of the journey, and that's again coming from my experience. When we did our first startup, and when once that failed, I got that 1.5, 2 years approximately time period to really sit back and think, what is it that I have done, right? Why have I done it? What is it that I want to do? Who am I? Right. So once you start that process, it ultimately leads you to your trying to get in touch with yourself or your deeper self, or your conscious self or your consciousness, whatever you call it. I mean, these are all terms ultimately. So that journey needs to start for a lot of people. I mean, the good news is because I work with the youth. Most startups, as you would know, are done by people in their 20s, mid 20s, maybe early 30s. Most of the cases, not always. And in fact, I would go to the extent of saying that most startup founders, whether they are doing a tech startup, whether they're doing a social enterprise, are deeply spiritual people, right? I mean, once you connect with them and once you start speaking to them, they're not doing it for money. That's the last thing on their mind. Money is, of course, an important metric of whether their startup is going in the right direction or not, right? It's the value creation. But their internal motivation is something else. They are looking at something bigger. It's more self-actualization. And that's about startups, but I think in general, the youth of today is much more conscious. I mean, they can see through a lot of these things. So that's the hope. I mean, and maybe like you, if you can sort of do more of such programs, etc. And so for us, I think the thing to do is to offer options.
Yes.
Right? We need to offer options. So like our organization offers various kinds of options for entrepreneurs who are trying to do stuff around, let's say, crafts, agriculture, tourism, whatever it is. So we try to make it easier for entrepreneurs to start up, right? Follow their passion, etc. And hopefully in that process, become beings. And the kind of initiatives that you are doing, various people are doing now, I think that's the supply side. On the demand side, I think the youth is much more conscious now. So hopefully, I think the magic should happen. Let's hope the best.
That's amazing. That's amazing talking to you. I think I can keep going on. There's so many questions yet, but I think thank you for your time. Thank you for your
Oh,
inner.
thanks a lot for having me here.
Yeah, and it really made a difference in my world. I have got so many nuggets from you. And thank you. And as how Chintan says, and I also believe in always, the journey begins with you guys. So don't keep waiting for others. What one gift can you be today? Just take one action and be that gift in the world. Come on, share it up. Be joyful. I think flow joy, flow consciousness, and start changing. Don't get caught up with who you being, what you being. Just be. That I would say and sum up this whole beautiful journey of this evening. Thank you, Chintan. And we would be putting anything you would like to say to our
No, no,
viewers.
I think we have had a pretty nice discussion, and
We'll have the Chintan's link here if anybody wants to, in the chat, anybody wants to get and connect with him, you can always get connected to him. And thank you so
absolutely.
much, again, Chintan. And thank you everybody who was here. Please, if you liked it, or if you think this was contributive to you, please share with your friends and family and ask them to be conscious and present, and fast fail is the new mantra for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Namaste.
My team. Bye bye,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye.